that one
That'll be a
screen there. Yeah, with a little bit of a delay. So the volume's off there. But there it is, live. The red light. And oops, something's going on. There it is. We are on live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take Two with Ben Klinger and myself. We've even got Jason here sitting with us. Good to have you guys here. I know we got a minute before 7. This thing gets on so much quicker. The other one time used to take like 7 minutes or so. Before we get started, I do want to share some things with you regarding Shannon. I texted Ted just a little bit ago, and Shannon was sent home last night. Her oxygen levels are back to 95, which is great. They got to see her get kind of wheeled back into the facility. She was happy to see her roommates. They FaceTimed her, and she's going to have someone from the regional center monitoring her for the next 30 days to make sure that she and all the caregivers are good. And Ted said to say thank you to everyone for your prayers for her and for them. And that is wonderful, wonderful news to know that she is back home. So good stuff, good stuff. I know it's been, again, a lot of things happening over the past weekend. We've got the new year coming up. Life is crazy. But we wanted to take this time to kind of share a little bit more and go in a little more detail about what Ben talked about Sunday. As you know, Take Two is where we look back at those things. And so we had to have Ben here because it was his talk. And first of all, thank you so much, man, for stepping in and doing that. I know Jason said he so appreciated what you shared. I appreciate your enthusiasm, too. I mean, you're very, even at the beginning, you talked about looking forward. Let me ask you this, a couple of things. What are you looking forward to in 2021? What are the things that make you optimistic?
It's a good question. You know, I have 2 little kids, a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my world is just so, it's growing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to be present.
Yeah.
But I'm doing some things personally in my life, you know? I'm going to do a sober January, which I think will really help me. There's a lot of things I think that I don't get done and things that I want to do, and it like eats me alive that I don't do these things. Have you ever heard people say like you don't regret the things you do? We end up regretting things that we don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that a lot. I feel like, man, I bought a keyboard and I want to learn how to play piano, and it's just sitting up there and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And I think my recreational activities get in the way of that sometimes. I really do. And then there's a host of other things.
Yeah.
You know, my relationship with my wife and being a more present father, which is really what I want. I firmly believe, I'm a new dad, so I don't really know much about it yet, but I firmly believe that you need to be present and need to be really present, not just physically.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and just really be present.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you know, I spend time with the kids or with the boy, the 2-year-old, and I have a drink in my hand, but I'm not really paying too much attention. He's just playing, and I'm on my phone or whatever. And I feel guilty about that. I feel not like guilt, but I feel like there's more. I feel like there's something better. I feel like this, like I said, God is pulling me to this potential to be a piano player, to be a present
Is that what
father.
motivated you to talk about this? I mean,
No.
The idea of stewardship, where did this come from?
I struggle with, when you ask me to speak, I love to speak, but I don't know what to speak about all the time. So I hit up a few friends, and I said, hey, I need ideas of what to talk about. And John Ford, a friend of mine, said, hey, why don't you talk about stewardship? Right away, I was like, well, that's pretty good, dude. I think it tied into New Year's too.
Okay.
You know, striving harder after the New Year and all
Right.
that. So I just took it and ran with it, and yeah.
You know, talking about this, you even mentioned some of these things like, you know, the idea of there's being more for my life. You don't want to miss out on that. I think we all feel that way at some point.
Yeah.
Does there ever come a place where that becomes unhealthy, where you don't appreciate what's happening because you're so worried about what you don't have or what you don't do? Do you think that there's
For me, no.
that?
For me, no. I could see that some people might get a little bit like compulsive with it and have an unhealthy view of it or relationship with it. For me, no. It bothers me that I don't do stuff, that I'm not living up to my potential. Really bothers me. I'm really hard on myself, really. And so I just really get motivated. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this, you know? It's usually short-lived, but at least.
Well, I mean, let's go there, because I think that's the struggle a lot of us have, right? We have these New Year's resolutions. Oh, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn piano. I'm going to go skydiving, whatever it is that we have in our mind. But then we fail to do that. And then there comes the repercussions of, how do I deal with the fact that I didn't accomplish what I wanted to? How do you deal with that? I mean, because you're still a positive guy, you're still upbeat, you're still looking forward, have all this potential. It doesn't seem like it's slowing you down from that. So what's the process in your mind when you say, and this is just for example, if you say, oh, I want to learn piano, but what if you don't? How do you deal with the fact that, well, I wanted to learn piano, but I didn't?
I've dealt with that for 10 years.
Okay.
I recently found a bucket list, and this is old. It's probably 20 years old. But it said, learn to play piano on it. And here I am 20 years later, and I haven't learned piano. But now that I bought one, now I think about it more because I have it. It's right up there waiting for you. It's like it's calling me from upstairs. I'm here, come play me. And I don't really know. Like I Google some things like advice for beginner piano players. It doesn't really help,
Yeah.
So I just started touching it, and
Yeah.
I don't really know what I'm playing a lot of times, but I just started playing with it. So that's my thing now. I don't play piano, I play with the piano.
Was there anything on that bucket list that you look back and you felt bummed because you didn't do it, or because it's kind of fallen off the radar?
No, a lot of the things were like pretty grand, play guitar with a symphony, learn a foreign language, travel, a lot of traveling, go snowboarding in Europe, go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, which I've never done, go to the Green Bay Packers Lambeau Field, which I've never done, have children, which I did. But no, they're all pretty grand things, It's going to take some, like save someone's life was on there too.
Yeah.
But
so it seems like, these ideas that you have that you want, they're not something that you feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you feel so locked into it that if it doesn't happen, it derails you.
no.
And so then how does this play, like with this idea of stewardship and doing these things? Because one of the things you mentioned was that laziness and irresponsibility, is something that bothers you, right? Just, I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be irresponsible. How do you see things that are comparing, like, okay, because I don't see you as lazy. I don't see you as irresponsible, but you didn't make it to Lambeau Field. Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't see either one of those as fitting, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you didn't make it to Lambeau Field, therefore you're irresponsible. You know what I'm saying? Right. So what do we do in life where, someone's wanting to accomplish something, they don't quite get there, or maybe it falls off the radar, and gosh, how many things, and, we're going to start a co-work space, no, we're not. All these things that you have and you want to see happen, but then they fall off. And so how important is it to adapt to those kinds of things, or life when it throws a change on you where, it was my plan to save money, but then I lost my job, right? Or it was my plan to do this, but then COVID happened, or I got ill. Those kinds of things. So how do you take those things, the idea of this is the potential I want to live, and then this is the life I'm living, and sometimes when these don't meet?
When I think of things that I want to do that I'm not doing, it's okay because it's just something that I want to do, like go to Lambeau. But people say things like, I want to lose weight, but really that's something they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that depression or the anxiety and the real emotional like letdown you're talking about would probably be more likely to happen if it's something that the person needs to do than just if you want to play piano or if you want to go to Lambo. Like those things on my list are fun extracurricular stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have be a good father on that list because that's something I need to do.
Right.
And if I didn't live up to that, I would be, and rightly so, I'd be wrecked over it. I'd be convicted over it. I'd have a lot of anxiety over it. My life, I wouldn't have peace,
Right.
So I would just say, when you take stock of your life, you take stock of your inventory, your audit of your life, just know the things that you need to do and do those things without question.
Right.
The things you want to do and you don't get around to them, I would suggest get a friend, because I have friends that'll be like, you want to go to Lambo? Well, I'll take you to Lambo. All you had to do was ask. They'll get the plane tickets, they'll get the tickets to the game, and you guys can do it together, and it'll be a fun journey. Even with working out together, like I mentioned on Sunday, it's good to have a partner with whatever it is.
Yeah, something that you can work out. So, it sounds like there's a different levels in this idea of priorities and potential. There's things that are necessary for health, I guess, for spiritual health, physical health, and then there's things that are just what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so in those comparisons, and then the things that you mentioned, you talked about, finances, you talked about our physical health, you talked about time, I'm probably forgetting one here.
Talents and abilities.
Yeah, all those things. How do those play in that priority? Like, are they all necessary, important things, or is there give and take on some of these things?
I think it's give and take. Like your gifts or your giftedness or your abilities, your talents. It could be a small thing, but when you use that gift to bless someone and share the Spirit of God with somebody, now it's not a small thing anymore. Now it's a pretty important thing. So I don't know, just well-roundedness is good. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was definitely something. One of the things that you mentioned, like when you were going through the parables, you talked about the parables are referring to the kingdom of God, right? And so how do these things, right, your talents, your health, your finances, all those things, how do those connect to the kingdom of God?
I mean, all things, I think, connect to the kingdom of God in some way. Your health is just your being, your organic being, so we have to take care of it. And I think most people would say, most people do take their health seriously. And just because you're overweight doesn't mean that you don't take your health seriously. That's a question that you would have to ask yourself, and that you'd have to answer yourself. What does it mean to take my health seriously? But I think it's just there's a sense of honor when you do it. You're taking care of something that God gave you, and it's honorable. It just feels good. It's like working hard.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when I work hard, there's something honorable about it. It just feels good. It feels right. Nobody can take it from you.
Right.
There's just something built into it that's honorable. But like I said, the talents, your abilities, or your giftedness, you have the opportunity to share the kingdom with those things. And then with that awareness, it's like there's no small task. There's no coincidence anymore. Like anything could be used to spread the Spirit of God,
So it's kind of like your whole life is living in the kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that way.
Well, let me ask you this. But when you say the kingdom of God, what does that mean to you?
That's another great question. A great mystery. People have been talking about this for 2,000 years, but still don't have a definitive answer. So that means that the answer is bigger than us. We can talk about this for 1,000 years again, and still it carries weight because we can't tear it down. But the kingdom of God, in my opinion, is the awareness of God.
Okay.
And I like to think of the kingdom and the kingship. So if I'm in a kingdom, then I'm under the kingship. There's a certain authority that I submit
Kind of
myself
like the
to.
rule of God.
Yes,
Okay.
and not a tyrannical rule. Just a rule like how the sun rules the sky during the daytime. It's just
That's a
there.
cool picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the kingdom of God in our lives. Do you see, I guess, how do these collide? How do these get together? How does the kingdom of God, this, kingship of God and my life, how are those playing together? And especially concerning like the parables, right? The steward and the one who has, 5,000 and he invests the other this money and invests. If it's referring to the kingdom, do you think it's actual money he's talking about? Do you think the money is a metaphor for more than just money or including money and more? I mean, how did you take that as you started kind of sharing that?
Yeah, I don't think I thought about it, but I think Jesus used the example of money, which is really value.
Okay.
So, because you have money, money's just money, but whatever you spend money on is what you value, right? So the things that are valuable to you is really what you have to work with and what you can invest in and, and increase maybe. And there's so much that it's valuable, that's value to us, and everybody would say, their families.
Right.
But there's a certain family member that you have this value in or value towards, that you're close to, that you love, or that you feel like you're helping nourish the kingdom of God in that person. So now you have an investment towards this thing that you value, this person that you value. And so every interaction with that person is now, it's in a different light now. Every chance you have to talk and eat with that person, and they look at your life and see what you're up to, and now everything is under the kingdom.
And so it seems like if we take our lives, all these aspects of our lives, and understand the kingdom and us living in it the way the king would like, then it shows up in all these areas of our lives.
Yeah, it really does. And like little things, like I talked about splitting hairs, I love. So I was using heavy cream in my coffee, and I look at the saturated fat, and it's like 18% of your daily value saturated fat in a 1 teaspoon. When I'm putting 2 or 3 teaspoons in each cup, and I'm having 2 or 3 cups, so I'm already getting all of my saturated fat first thing in the morning. So I started going, okay, this is not good. I don't want this.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had to please God by doing it. It was just something that pulled me, my personal choice.
Okay.
That I'm not cool with this health choice. I got to make a change. So I tried soy creamer and all these different almond creamer, and none of them are as good as heavy whipping cream. But finally found a coffee creamer that has less fat in it that I'm comfortable with drinking. So I'm comfortable in my own skin again. And that's important for me.
Yeah, would that be a difference then between, let me ask you, what would be the difference between splitting hairs and legalism?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. And I wanted to give that discllaimer on Sunday, like, let's live in grace, guys.
Right, and
like,
you did say that, right?
Yeah.
You did mention that.
Yeah.
So
and this,
let's dive down that road a little bit. Like,
yeah.
what does that mean? Because some people, especially you start talking about things that are personal to us, like our weight, right? And I was like, oh man, he's talking to me, and now I get defensive, and it's like, oh, Ben's being legalistic. I like that creamer. I like ice cream. Get off my case,
too.
right? And it's, sometimes, it's like the things that I argue about the most are the things that I need to look at the most, usually, right? So, but how do you split hairs between that and legalism?
When I think of legalism, I think of something that's going to get me into a right standing with God, or allow me into God's graces or favor or protection, or, over my life. And I already acknowledge that it's Jesus that gives me that the protection, the hand of protection over my life. I don't need to do anything. There's nothing I can do to get to heaven. There's nothing I can do that'll go get to hell. I can't earn any of that, you know? So legalism in my eyes is kind of like using those things either in your own mind to get in a right place with God, or what's probably most common is where people use those things to show other people that they're in right graces with God. Look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I must be pretty good, or I must be close to God because look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's self-righteousness.
So then I'm going to jump in on you again, because you mentioned that if you don't take your health seriously, I question whether you take God seriously.
Yeah.
How does that fit in now with this idea of getting right with God and that? Or what's the difference? Can you kind of elaborate on what's the difference between that idea of not taking God seriously and doing this so that you can be in good with God? I mean, 'cause this is splitting hairs again. We're good.
Yeah,
but I think it's important, right? Because I think
Yeah.
there's a difference.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to nuance that difference.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it gets lumped into, oh, Ben is...
When I said, you know, if you don't take your health seriously, what I the picture I had in my mind was somebody who has no regard whatsoever. They'll drink the 4 cups of coffee with 100% of saturated fat every day. They'll eat anything in sight without even a thought. See, like, you take your health seriously because you think, I shouldn't eat this donut, but I'm gonna. But you have the thought that you shouldn't because you take your health seriously. Even if you make the wrong choice, you still had the thought, you're conscious of it, like,
important.
you know, I probably shouldn't eat 5 of these. I'll only have 1 instead. So you might still be slipping down a bad path or making wrong choices, health choices, but you're taking your health seriously because you're not eating 5 of them, and you're showing some self-control, you know? And yeah, I said that to really provoke. I really wanted to have a strong statement to where people would go, oh, that ain't fair, and it's not fair. I mean, there's things I do where I'm not taking my health seriously, you know? I know it's not good for me, but I do it anyway.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I know it's not good for me, and I'm convicted by it, and I'm moved by it. And I wish I had a better word for conviction, you know, that gets thrown around church a lot.
Yeah.
I'm
just kind of pulled.
I'm pulled.
Yeah.
I like that better. I'm pulled into my potential of being a healthy person because God is reminding me, hey, maybe just 1 donut instead of 5. And then it's like God and I are like, okay, yeah, 1. And God's like, what do you think, 4? And I'm like, 5. And God says, no, 3. And I go, oh, okay. Or it's like negotiating or whatever.
So when you say God says, right, those things always flip me out, right?
Yeah.
You know, God said a lot of things, you know, according to people, you know. But, I mean, I want to kind of go into this idea of being pulled, right? It seems like the thought is that God is pulling us into more of what is good for us, what is healthy for us, what is better for the society under this kingdom kind of idea. He's always pulling us to more of that. And so sometimes I feel that pull with a less donut. Sometimes I feel that pull with, you know, using my abilities to communicate or do something of value to people. And that's kind of what you mean by God says this. Is that?
I say God said, but it's really Ben thought.
Okay. But there's something pulling Ben to that
there's
thought.
Something pulling me, and I walk in communion with God.
Yeah.
I'm a believer. I practice my spirituality. I'm in close contact with God every day. You know, I can trust, and most of our Genesis family is in that they're probably in the same boat as me. You've made that decision. You're in conscious contact with God all the time, so you don't have to worry about sometimes like, oh, was that me or was that God? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been years of hashing that out in my mind, but it's not a clear revelation like heaven opens and God speaks to Ben and tells him not to eat the donut. No, it's just my conscience saying, hey, don't eat the donut. Yeah.
And I mean, I think this is a pull that brings us to a place of better well-being, better communal well-being, better societal kind of connection under this idea of God and his kingdom, right? And there's definitely need for that, right? We have so much need, And there is so much, I think, of ourselves and even society pulling us in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so I think these parables of Jesus are pretty hard, because they do strike at some things. And of course, I think they're meant to, where it says, are you living a life that is meaningless? Right?
Yeah.
Where you're living a life that is, just like the one person burying it. I'm not even going to put it in the bank. I'm just going to bury it. I'm not going to do anything with this life. And it's like, you've been given a life and you're not doing anything with it. Right?
Yeah.
And there's something required from us, not in a, like you said, not in a tyrannical way, right? But something that this kingdom needs,
Yeah.
that only you can give,
Yeah.
whoever you are. And that pull is helping us in the stewardship, whether it's our finances, whether it's our bodies, whether it's our abilities, all these things together are who we are, can be part of this help to the kingdom that God's doing.
Yep.
Does that seem like a fair statement to what's
with the
going?
intention, like when you do it, like now your diet is not just a weight loss diet, but now it's a exercise to glorify God in your body, and it could become an act of worship. It could be much more than just a diet. Your abilities, your time, everything becomes so much more and so meaningful. And that's cool that you use that meaning, because that's what we want in our lives.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson's book, Maps of Meaning, he shows that meaning is connected to responsibility, which is pretty interesting. It's interesting that the servants that were faithful were given responsibility. They were given charge over 10 cities and charge over 5 cities, which sounds like more work.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wrote down here. You mentioned responsibility as a reward.
Yes, because responsibility is the key to meaning in your life. If you take up a new job, you have a new responsibility in there, then you're going to have some more meaning in your life. If you have children, you have more meaning in your life. If you have responsibility to cook dinner tonight, then you have more meaning in your life because dinner's on you. So anything that we take on to do, everything that we do has meaning.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of chores becoming sacred participation, because dishes suck, man. I hate doing the dishes, but I do them every night.
Yeah.
Because I love my wife and I want to like invest in that, and I love the Lord, and I'll gladly do something that I don't like to do. Now it's my little worship. I get to do the dishes, It's so silly, but it's just dishes.
Well, and I think that colors the whole conversation in a different light, right? So instead of this being, oh, you need to do this to get this, it's this idea of you do this, you're taking on this responsibility because there's value, right? The reward is bringing value into it.
Yeah.
So, I'm taking care of, my time management because it's valuable.
Yeah.
And there's something that can be gained from it that is of worth. And that's why the responsibility and the reward go together, right? Because there's meaning in these things.
Yep.
I mean, I think that colors the whole conversation, in a way that brings out, I don't know, I want to say a warmth. You know what I mean? Because it can come across, oh, you do this, do this, do this. That's why, the idea of legalism and splitting hairs changes when it's the idea of responsibility and value. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like now it's not, oh, do this or you're not this. Do this or you don't get this. You're better if you do this. It's like, no, there is value in investing your life in all these areas.
Yep. And I think, like when we appreciate stuff, appreciate literally means to add value to. Depreciate means to lose value.
Yeah.
When you drive your car off the lot, it depreciates in value. To appreciate is to add value. And when you, I don't want to say starve yourself, but when you diet and you finally get a cheat day, you really enjoy that cheat day. Like, that is the best pizza you've ever had. You appreciate
It's
it.
always pizza.
You appreciate it more.
Yeah.
Like, the value in that cheat day pizza is higher than it would have been if you weren't fighting through the diet for the previous week or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the same idea that, you can't really understand the value of wealth if you haven't been dirt poor, or the more poor you've been, the more you can understand the blessing of wealth. It goes always. You can't understand light without the darkness, etc., etc. But you work really hard, and then you get that day of rest, and that day of rest is not like, oh, finally I can catch my breath, but that day of rest is really good. It's really recharging, and you really enjoy it because you've worked so hard. If you hadn't have worked as hard, that day of rest wouldn't be as valuable.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, and just these things appreciate as you invest in them in different ways.
Yep.
You appreciate the other. You're kind of taking, so, and I love the nuance. So it's not just, oh, you'll have to always do this. It's like you can do this, but then you can enjoy this,
Yeah.
right? So you can, take care of your body, but you can still enjoy pizza.
Yeah.
Right? You can do this work and still enjoy, a day off or a vacation or a nice car or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Because I worked
And you'll
hard
enjoy
and
those
I get
things
those
more.
things, right?
Yeah.
So you appreciate those things. And I love that you said, some people, you said a $500 car. I don't know what $500
Not nowadays,
cars
huh?
are. Yeah. But, you said these things are what I appreciate, and other people, these are things that they appreciate. And so there are so many varieties in people and the things that we appreciate.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is, how do we take the things that are a part of our life and make them valuable, make them of worth in this kingdom setting, right? And that kind of led me to think about that last parable where you talk about the shrewd steward, right? Because that's always an interesting one, right? And you talked about the shrewd steward as being someone who invested or used money. At the end of it, I forget what Jesus said. He says something like, the people of this world are wiser in how they use money than the kingdom of God. Let's talk about that a little bit, the idea of that, because I got some ideas that I have, but I want to hear yours. Maybe we can bounce some of those together. What is he trying to get to there? What was the point of that story?
Good. That's a good question. I don't know. Right off the bat, I would say that something's better than nothing. And even though the master lost money on some of those deals, he still got something. And something's better than nothing. And
what did the shrewd steward invest in?
What did he invest in? His relationships with the people that he gave. He cut their debt in half. So he invested in the people.
Yeah, he made friends that would
friends.
then provide for his future. And so his investment wasn't in the monetary, it was in the
people.
humanity.
Ooh.
Right? And so the investment was in these people, because it was those he used money to
Yeah.
gain relationship
Yeah.
that then allowed him to
Yeah.
develop, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's goes back to the heart of the kingdom.
Yes.
Right, because it's always about people.
People.
It's always about, and I think of like the jobs I have. Looking back, someone gave me that job.
Yeah.
Right. It was
Yeah.
someone who I knew.
Yeah.
Who maybe got. I mean, there might be some out there who's like, no, I just went online and did it. But a lot of times, someone gave you a lead.
It's not what you know; it's who you know.
Exactly, kind of a thing, and those relationships can take you so much further.
Yeah.
So that when the bottom falls out, like what did with this guy, now he's got people who will care for him.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so another idea of investment isn't just the money, just isn't the monetary, but it's actually investing in people.
People. Yep.
And seeing that as the investment that will produce down the line. I mean,
Yeah.
I know myself, we couldn't be here if it wasn't for people who've helped us,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think we're all in that situation where if it wasn't for people stepping in and giving us, of their time, their money to help us in those times of need, we wouldn't be here, whether it's family or friends. It's an investment that I think we fail to recognize many times.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's really good.
So I think seeing people and money and trying to work those together, because they just seem so conflicting. When Jesus says the love of money is the root of all evil, it's
right.
like, oh, money's bad. But then seeing a person and using this mammon, money, to gain relationships, we start to see we can take this and put it towards good. And you talked about that, right?
Demonstrate our friendship with God.
Yeah, and invest in things that are good. Always we've been trying to, at Advent, let's buy less and give more, right? Let's not just consume. Let's try and be generous and see that as an investment.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an investment that I'm getting return in. It's an investment in the kingdom.
Yeah.
Right? And so it kind of unfolds in that way.
Yeah, and it's not wrong to invest your money. It's not wrong to think about your money and to use it and to work it. And I'm bad at this, but some people are really good at it. And I hide behind my self-righteousness that I'm not good with money. Like, oh, well, I don't think about money. I'm not attached to my money.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. So I've always hid behind that, but really I'm just not good at money.
I'll just spiritualize it so it seems.
That's what I've done. That's what I've done in my life. But the other part that I think, or that I got from the story reading it last week, was that we should be better money makers, and for the purpose of being generous. We should network together. I think I said something like, y'all should be starting businesses together. We should be sharing stock information. Like, we should be making money, wheeling and dealing and making money.
Unless it's insider trading, that's illegal.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how that works, but don't do anything illegal, people. Not seeing money as something that's bad in itself,
right.
but something that is useful
for
this bigger purpose, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's bigger purpose in your life or bigger purpose, in other ways. I know being generous, there are some people who just are very generous, right? And I find people that are generous are usually very grateful people. That it seems to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
People that have a lot of gratitude in their life also have a lot of generosity.
Yeah.
Just because that's kind of part of, I think, they work together in such a good way.
Yeah.
And so having that idea of, I'm not getting it to hoard or to, just consume. I'm achieving things because there's other things that I can do with it. It's a different mentality.
You can do everything with enough money.
Yeah.
I mean, anything you want to do.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to do in the whole world,
What would you do if you could do anything
like that? Oh man, gosh, I don't know. I would do a lot of stuff.
I always, because when I think of that, I always think, okay, if I could get anything I wanted, would my life be better or would the world be better?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'd get this car, I'd get this house, I'd get this boat, I'd get this thing, or would I, help these people? I would do these things, I help these things.
Well, how much does it cost to build a well? 10, 12 grand?
I think less.
5 grand.
Yeah, something like that.
So would I buy a $5,000 guitar or would I build a well?
Yeah, Dan, what would you do? What would you do, Ben? Yeah. So, and then
I'd buy a $1,000 guitar and build a $4,000 well. Here, I'm splitting. This is the splitting hairs.
Yeah.
But no, and that's the walking in wisdom that I talked about. Like, we have to navigate this stuff and figure out what you're comfortable with. Yeah. What would I do if I? And I love the hypotheticals too.
Yeah, and where is the pull at that time, right? Sometimes the pull is, it's real strong in one way, and
might be different in 3 years.
Yeah, and I think we have to recognize that's part of our life, and that's part of how God works. He's pulling me now. I think there's always a place where, if the pull is always towards another guitar, or always towards. I can't talk. I have too many guitars. if it's always pulled towards one direction, then we have to,
Yeah.
okay, why is it always, pulled towards this
No,
direction?
you're right. If I had 35 guitars, I'd probably be satisfied.
Yeah. Unless you were a musician who played them all,
Right.
then I need those guitars. So I
Yeah.
can justify it. But yeah, I mean, I love those kinds of things too, just because they're self-revealing, right?
Yeah.
They kind of help you see yourself.
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast yesterday, I think it was, and it was talking about the reason for journaling. And I don't journal, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. And I always just say, well, Jesus didn't journal, so I didn't need, but again, make it spiritual just
Sure.
because I don't do it.
Yeah.
But the reason for journaling is because when you write something out, it takes it out of your emotion, puts it down somewhere, and then you actually can see it in a different way. Right? And I think sometimes that's what this does when we talk about things and we say, oh, I would do this, I would do this. If we put it out there, it then reveals what's happening because it's
Yeah.
out there,
Yes.
and we get to see back at it
Yes.
in a different way.
Yeah, and I love that. I said on Sunday that we don't really know ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the great journey in life, is to learn who I am. I like to look at things like that make me angry. Like, why does that make me angry? Why did I wonder why? Wonder why that little thing made me angry, And then just really take inventory of that, And then when it happens again, I can think to myself, okay, I didn't get as angry this time. Because I've thought about it or whatever it is.
Yeah. And usually when those kinds of things, when you look at what makes you angry, what upsets you, even the things that bring you joy,
Yeah.
when you talk about or investigate those things, it reveals things in you
Yeah.
that help you to see yourself more clearly.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing for us to do so many times, is to actually be inquisitive, because we are all moved by our emotion. Even our reason goes through our amygdala. That is an emotional process. And the reason I think, oh yes, this is right, is because I feel that this is right. Or the reason I'm so upset is at that and that person, what they're saying, is because I feel anger about
Emotional.
this,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
impulse.
Yeah.
We think we're so reasonable.
Right.
I thought about it, but it
Right.
was emotion that moved your reason.
Yeah.
It's
It's not that the guy got his car a little too close to yours on the freeway. There's something deeper there.
yeah.
It's either a respect issue or
He's disrespecting me.
something like that along
Yeah.
those lines,
Doesn't
or
he know
a
who I
pride
am?
issue.
Yeah.
Or honestly, you just think you're a better driver than that person.
Yeah.
And so there's
Or you just think you're the only driver on the road.
Yeah, right.
And you should be there. So.
but there's something deeper. It's not just the little incident. There's usually something deeper.
yeah.
But
One of the things you mentioned, it was the hardest and that stood out to me, was the idea of time,
yeah.
right? And how we use our time, because there's so many ways to look at time, and everyone has the same amount. And what do we spend time on? Whether it's 3 hours of binge watching TV, or whether it's 3 hours of practicing guitar or piano, or whether it's spending time and with family reading. There's always things that we could say, oh, this is what I really would like to do, but there comes a time, like we just spent time away this weekend, right? And it was like, man, we needed this time, right? It was like, okay, this has been a long time coming. I mean, it's just been hectic with my daughter's wedding and with a lot of other things going on. It's like, okay, now this time was something that was appreciated because of all the busyness that we've had. And it changes, right? Time isn't something like this is always the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, right now this is the right thing to do because this is what's needed.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's where most people live. It's like you just do what you have to do, and you barely keep your head above water because we're so busy.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of taking an inventory and just think about your life. Okay, my last vacation was in June, so I'm not going to get another one until next year. But now I have it written down, or at least in my mind, I have it on paper, so I know what to expect. You know what I mean?
You think you know what to expect,
Yeah,
and then
this is true.
COVID comes, and then oh well, I guess that didn't happen. No, but even those kinds of things, right? It's like having an idea of I need to, allot time for certain things because
Yeah.
they're important for me, right?
Yeah.
I do need to spend quiet time. I do need to spend time that is meditative. I need that, right? I know it's good. I do need to spend time learning, growing, because that's the avenue that I'm working in. Or at work, I need to, it's like my son-in-law. I've got a son-in-law now. He's always taking courses and doing things to elevate his position, right? And so he's taking time because he's got this kind of goal in mind, and it's a good thing. And I think those are important things to do, right? Because we can squander time.
Yep.
Or, and I don't know if squander time is the right word. Sometimes, again, just not recognizing the value in time. You see, I can spend a real good 3 hours watching Hamilton with my family.
Yeah.
Or someone, right? But that's 3 hours of TV.
Right.
But it can be a good time.
Yes.
Right? Those kinds of things have that dynamic, but it's, again, having value and meaning in the things that we do.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just checking out and doing nothing. Right? Just some thoughts I had on the time.
Yeah.
That's the struggle.
I broke it down like that too, like wasting time or busy doing life.
Yeah.
But the amount of time that we waste can get out of hand pretty quick.
I think we can waste time being busy.
This is true. But
Right.
like at least like somebody like your son-in-law who it may be spending a lot of time building his career,
Yeah.
maybe a workaholic or whatever, but it's still a good step forward. It's still a thing. It's still, like baby steps. And I love that idea of like do something is better than nothing. Especially like people that want to try to diet or try to exercise. Like you got to start by walking around the block. You just got to do something. And that doesn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
I don't think you should go to the gym for 3 hours a day either. I don't think you should watch TV for 3 hours a day. I don't think you should practice guitar for 3 hours a day. I mean, I wish I could. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, it's this balance, and I think people are different stages of life. We have people that are retired.
I think it's important to give that understanding that there is a balance, so that 3 hours and this might not be a good thing, but if there's value in that 3 hours, it can become a good thing.
Yeah, and that's me. That's my life. I work. I come home. I got the kids. What else is there? You know what I mean? I even get to eat dinner.
Yeah.
But
well, and meaning is what we're kind of looking for, right? I mean, that Viktor Frankl quote that you had, and that book is an amazing book. Man's search for meaning is so important when you start seeing the things that are meaningful. And it always is in relationship to people. It's always the value we have in those relationships with the people around us, and the importance of what life is and meaning, right? If my life does not have value, then I don't care. But if my life has value, then I care, and I will go through, what they went through in, Germany at that time. So finding meaning is an important thing, being able to kind of see that happen in our life.
And in people, it's just so good. It's just so.
And trying to help people, and I don't know, like, because the word steward is just kind of a strange word that we don't use, so right? But trying to help people see their value, right? So that they can be, quote, good stewards, so that they can be people who see meaning in their life. It's such an important thing. I know, we were talking even with Jason earlier, and just talking about how he's lost weight, and he's got involved with the podcast for the LAFC podcast. It's brought meaning, right? It's brought meaning to him, and it's been helpful to him in those things, and helping people to see that that's an important part of your life. And finding meaning means that you usually invest in other things that are going to be helpful to you and to other people.
Yeah, it makes life rich. Yeah, everything, seeing the sunset.
Yeah, we got to see 2 sunsets on the ocean.
Yeah, it's more meaningful. Things, and I think
it's so strange though, because when you look at the sun, I mean, you saw it too Sunday, right? It's like what is it about seeing something that's so grand, right? Because you're looking at a sun, this, ball of fire, however 1,000 miles away or whatever.
93 million.
Yeah, million, 1,000 would be close, right? 93 million miles away, go down and you just see the immensity of the scenery. And in some ways you feel so small, but you feel so big.
Yeah.
It's kind of this play. And I think that idea of stewardship, too, is similar where, I'm doing this little thing, but I'm doing it in part of something that's really big.
Yes.
And that's what brings it meaning. It's
like
not
that,
okay, yes, I saved 5,000 talents, right? It's I did that. It's like, no, I invested in something that's really big.
Yep.
Right? And then now I get to be a part of that that's really big.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's people, Yeah. I'm just one small person. I'm just a guy, But I'm a part of this family, and my family and my kids and my wife's family and my Genesis family. Like I'm a part of this big thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm still just Ben.
Yeah.
It's just me.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's important to see yourself in that way, right? To see the you and to see the you that's connected.
Yeah, and I talked a little bit too about our network, which I had never thought of in the past, but I like the idea of using our network as a
tool to be an investment.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Especially when we're talking about investing in people and being intentional with people. We all know a lot of people because we're part of a church family. We all have a lot of our sphere of influence is probably a lot bigger than we would ever imagine.
Yeah. Well, and if we were all connecting the way we could connect, it would affect so much, right? Takeaways. Any thoughts that you have, like last thoughts of, or maybe something like I really wish I would have shared this, but forgot to, or want to talk about it a little bit more?
No.
You're better than me, man. I always think back and I go, man, I should have said this, shouldn't have said that.
Usually, no, I like this conversation too because we thought about it again and hashed it out. The thing about people and investing in people and, using your money to invest in people, using your time to invest in people, using your talents to invest in people. And it all goes back to people. Yeah.
We're part of the kingdom, which is the whole idea of, your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? The reason I take care of this is because this is where God is at work. Yeah,
and service to the world around us. The 12th step where the alcoholics and addicts live their lives is sharing it. Yeah. That's where you go through the 11 steps and then you live the rest of your life in the 12th step, sharing the good news with everybody, being a blessing and basically serving.
Helping others, especially who are in that same boat.
I think as Christians we should do the same. We got our theology, we got our testimony, now it's time to serve. We need to get out there and serve the world.
Because theology,
proof's in the pudding.
Without the service really kind of
just a whole bunch of homework.
Yeah.
Nobody likes homework.
I got an A. Good. Yay.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks, Ben. Appreciate again you stepping in and covering, and appreciate this conversation. It's always good to kind of see how it goes and do that. So thank you guys for joining. Jason, thanks for being here. Remember too, we are not meeting together, but if you need to be here, we are here for you. I know of a few other people who have COVID right now, and some of them more serious than others, but we want to continue to practice just the safe way of trying to connect so that we can stay healthy until things change, and hopefully that'll be soon. Don't stop reaching out to people. Don't stop connecting. Don't stop calling. Do what you can in a safe way, and be considerate of other people. Love you guys. We miss you terribly. This is great, even having two people here. Yes, I'm gonna cry. Thank you, people. So we miss you guys. We love you. Stay connected. Again, hope to talk to you all soon. Just reading a comment. Appreciated the comments on the crafty servant parable. Okay. When do we get to hear Ben playing his guitar?
Hey.
I don't know. We'll have to
Ask
find
and
out.
you shall receive.
Thank you guys. Love you. Take care.